Committee to order. Clerk, was there proof of notification?
Yes.
And can you please take the roll?
Brewer.
Here.
Burke.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
Rock. Here. Wilkie. Okay.
Here.
Steve. Bowie.
Here.
Steve is there.
Okay, so we have a quorum, so we can conduct our business today. Agenda item number 3, agenda approval. We have an 11-point agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Sorry. Okay, motion by Supervisor Luck, a second by Supervisor Cooey. All those in favor of the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, so on to agenda item number 4, resolution awarding the sale of $1,050,000 in taxable general obligation promissory notes. So Administrator Weinreich.
Mr. Chair, we do have a sale this morning. We're able to sell our notes. Carol Worth, our municipal advisor, is at North right now. She's anticipating being here 20 to 30 minutes. I recommend if we can move to the next agenda item and then come back to this one when Ms. Worth arrives.
Okay, so sounds good. Let's move to agenda item number 5, creation of a temporary CDBG Citizen Participation Plan Committee. So Administrator Weinreich.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to recommend creating a temporary citizens participation planning committee related to the community block grant development post program. I think I have my director here, Jason, are you here? Are you able to come down and talk on a few of these points to creation? The committee is looking for the oversight of implementation of the citizen participation plan as we adopted previously to the county board, as well as offering guidance in the preparation of the grant application to obtain citizen views and enable them to respond to proposals at all stages of the CDBG program. This will be a temporary committee. Members anticipated to be recommended through the committee on committees actually tonight if we're able to recess from our county board meeting. Director Glassberger does have names to assign to that committee as well this evening. The economic development director will solicit to fill, which is, and I would refer to Director Glassberger if there's anything else that we need to know.
I think the agenda item cover speaks for itself. If you have questions, I'm glad to answer them.
Below the agenda cover, Mr. Chair, you'll see the proposed resolution, which would be carried forward then to the county board this evening. 5-member committee. Because this is a temporary assignment, recommend that we do not amend our committee's structure of the resolution, but just to assign this committee through resolution process, which we've done with historically, to the best of my knowledge, with other temporary types of assignments.
Okay, so one question I have here is under financial review. It says that an apportionment is needed in the economic development budget. Is that correct, or should it be in the already adopted budget?
It is in the current budget. Director Glassberger does have some unexpended revenues that he's anticipating this year. So I'd recommend using the money from that budget for committee expenses and per diem mileage, other committee type costs for that committee.
Okay, so we are not being asked to make an apportionment. This committee is not.
We would be doing any type of a ledger change to the best of my knowledge, but we would be paying for those expenses out of Jason's. There's a still a lot of budget for 2020.
Okay, Supervisor Luck.
I just wanted to clarify. So this committee needs to be formed in order to utilize this money.
That's fair. Yeah.
Great. Okay, then I go ahead and entertain a motion to recommend creating this committee. The motion by Supervisor Brewer, second by Supervisor Cooey. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, thank you, Mr. Glassberger. On to agenda item number 6, County Airport Budget Appropriations Agreement. Mr. Leonard.
Mr. Chair, a motion, looking tonight for a motion to recommend County continues with a 25.5% of ownership and operating capital projects apportionment of the Tri-County Airport beginning on 1 January 2021. And make recommendations to the Tri-County Airport Commission to amend the Tri-County Airport Operations Ordinance to reflect changes in ownership and apportionments. Without reading the entire background and having your fairly nasally voice, this comes off of our last conversation that we've had with this group. The recommendation that was sent on behalf of the committee to Sauk County called for a 22% ownership apportionment, and it was based on the 20 of portion based on citizenry, population, thank you. And Mr. Tim McCumber, the Sauk County Chair, countered that through their Finance Committee in Sauk County, asking for Richland County to maintain the current 25.5% ownership, with then Iowa's 25.5% ownership falling to Sauk County.
Yeah, well, actually, Mr. McCumber wants 50-50 is what he wants, but he's not gonna do that. So, Clinton had recommended 22, was it? We're coming back after regular 25, whatever it was, 26, 25.5. And that's where we were before. So I think that's right, that we should continue with that.
Okay, any other committee members, comments or questions? So we've always had 25.5%, and Sauk County used to be at 49%, and now they're going to go up to 4.5%. Okay. Okay. Well, so a motion is before us. So Supervisor Cooey, what's the motion? Supervisor Locke. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, so agenda item number 7 is amending the Families First Coronavirus Response Act policies. Mr. Lender.
Mr. Chair, 2 items that you'll find in your folder and online. Items number 7 and 7B. Looking at the summary document, looking today for a motion to accept proposed changes to the Families First Coronavirus Response Act policies regarding employee eligibility exemption language. From changing the language from Pine Valley Community Village nurses and all staff to Pine Valley Community Healthcare providers, including director of nursing, registered nurse manager, social services supervisor, social worker, registered nurse supervisor, registered nurse, licensed practical nurse, medication aid, unit clerk, certified nursing assistant, a CBRF unit clerk, activity aid, personal care worker, resident assistant, effective 11 September 2020. The background of this, first paragraph there, this relates back to the CARES Act in response to COVID, which went into effect in March 18 of 2020. When creating this policy, language under the eligibility exemption of healthcare providers and emergency responders was interpreted to include all Pine Valley resident staff. The Department of Justice later amended guidance to exempted positions regarding healthcare facilities specifically. A person is not a healthcare provider merely because his or her employer provides healthcare services or because he or she provides a service that affects the provision of healthcare services. For example, IT professionals, building maintenance staff, human resources personnel, cooks, food service workers, record managers, consultants, and billers are not healthcare providers, even if they work in a hospital or similar healthcare facility. As such, it is proposed to change the policy language listing exempt personnel for both the PLSA program and for the EFMLA from Pine Valley Village nurses and all staff again to the list of specified folks as identified through Administrator Rislow as still meeting the criteria of healthcare providers. And the financial impact on this is in the adopted budget. We will have utilization of payment to eligible employees will impact service hours by allowing the PLSA and EFMLA credit hours of pay versus utilization of accrued benefit time. So budget impacts may be experienced in additional overtime and compensatory expenses resulting in covering employees utilizing this benefit. So essentially, this will, reflecting on the changes that are put in place by the Department of Justice, there will be more employees that will be eligible and entitled to utilize this type of a benefit. The impacts will be on the service hours. It should still fall within their budgeted amount, but again, if it's the extra impacts that there might be with overtime and compensatory time, may be additional expenses. And then below that, Mr. Chair, you'll see the proposed resolution language, which would go before then the county board this evening.
Okay, and then we also have the other, let's see, we have the attachment that you referred to earlier, which is our, let's see, it's an addendum to the Richland COVID-19 plan. And you got marked in red and underlined and strike out the changes that this would make to that existing addendum. So any questions or comments from committee members? Okay, if not, then I'd entertain a motion to, let's see, what was it? To accept the proposed changes to that addendum regarding employee eligibility exemption language. Okay, motion by Supervisor Gentis, second by Supervisor Turk. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Back on to agenda item number 8. I'm moving a little slow tonight. Printout. Hazardous pay for healthcare and emergency responders, critical infrastructure employees exempt from Families First Act. Administrator Langreck.
Mr. Chair, tonight looking for a motion to recommend resolution to the County Board of Supervisors to issue a one-time hazardous pay to identified Pine Valley employees and county emergency responders and critical infrastructure employees utilizing acquired federal stimulus revenues, routes to recovery grant funding, and Department of Transportation reimbursement in recognition of hardship endured as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and their exemption to the Families First Act policies. That would be the PLSA and the EFMLEA. Pine Valley Community Village has been in receipt of multiple federal nursing home grants and stimulus through allocations through part of the CARES Act. The stimulus package is intended to provide financial relief during the COVID-19 pandemic. This stimulus revenue may be used for wages and compensation, including hazardous pay. Richland County has been allocated the $292,000 and change of grant funding through the Wisconsin State's Routes to Recovery grant, which is another trickle down from the CARES Act. And this money can be used for hazardous pay as well for identified emergency responders and for healthcare personnel. Richland County has claimed about $193,000 of that apportionment. In looking at our trending for the last submission, we're anticipating about $63,000 that we'll be using in November. This leaves approximately $35,000 or so of unallocated monies from this grant to be claimed for hazardous pay. The categories of eligible expenditures may include increased workers' compensations due to COVID-19, which includes hazardous pay defined as additional pay for performing hazardous duty or work involving physical hardship due to COVID-19. For the purposes of preserving critical county functions, the following Richland County employee positions were identified as exempt from eligibility to the Richland County Families First Corona Response Act policies, the PLSA and the EFMLEA. The positions were public health nurses and all staff, Pine Valley Community Village nurses and all staff, law enforcement officers, jail personnel dispatchers, emergency medical service personnel and all staff, highway patrolmen and equipment operators, management information systems personnel. And for the purposes of meeting the hazardous pay standard, as defined as a physical hardship due to COVID-19 Richland County recognizes the increased exposure of these employees while performing functions of their services as required. Frequent and extended close contact with members of the public or whom may be in direct quarantine without access to PLSA or the EFMLEA to compensate for quarantine time. So we're looking for a resolution then tonight for these folks then to receive a one-time payment of $500 for a full-time employee, $300 for a regular part-time employee, and $150 for a casual call-in employee. Eligible employees are identified as those being initially exempt from the Richland County Families First Coronavirus Response Act policies. This would include, again, Pine Valley nurses and all staff, the list there before you. The further be it therefore resolved type of statements here kind of go then into the details of how it would be administered. Richland County will authorize a one-time hazardous pay to Pine Valley employees effective 11 October 2020 and county emergency responders and critical infrastructure employees effective 27 October 2020 who have worked productive hours during the pandemic. Highway patrolmen, equipment operators assigned to state roles will be eligible for hazardous pay as well, 7 full-time employees, but payment will be submitted to the Department of Transportation for funding. Pine Valley employees will be eligible for hazardous pay, but will utilize funding through the CARES Act provided relief stimulus. The estimated wage impact for the hazardous pay initiative is calculated at roughly $60,000 for Pine Valley from stimulus revenues, $31,000 and change for county emergency responders and critical infrastructure employees through routes to recovery, and $5,720 for county emergency responders and critical infrastructure employees through Department of Transportation, based on the current identified employee staff. Hazardous payment earnings will be susceptible to withholdings and contributions from retirement, Social Security, FICA, and earned income. The payments will be included in the October 30th, 2020 pay for Pine Valley and Highway, and the special payroll for the remaining folks of the county. And then below that, Mr. Chair, you'll see the hyperlinked references to the different policies that we're referencing in here and are defining our eligibilities. You'll see the financial impacts of the numbers, and again, these are numbers that we're looking to have reimbursed through the 3 different funding sources. And below that, then you'll see the identified folks for the emergency responders, critical infrastructure outside of Pine Valley. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so do committee members have questions or comments on this?
I have a question.
Supervisor Brewer?
Who isn't eligible, Clinton?
Who is not eligible?
Yes, who are we excluding?
The folks that essentially are still eligible for the Families First Act. So folks that would still have access to 2 weeks of paid leave in the event that they contract and test positive, or if they're put in a quarantine, or if their children are and family members are as such, or if school's closing and for those types of reasons. Those folks would not be eligible for this payment. It's the folks that we've exempted from that program that we're looking to give this hazardous pay to.
I know that this became a contentious subject, especially at the Highway Department, and this would address that, would it not?
It's still not an apples to apples thing, Supervisor Brewer, but it's a way to try to recognize the additional hazards that we're putting those employees into, as well as the hardships of not having access and eligibility to that program.
Right.
Supervisor Cooey?
Like Marty's talked about, why were these people exempt?
We exempted those folks underneath the mindset of making sure that we could preserve critical functions of the county. The folks that are not exempt have entitlement to those types of programs, which can extend out with compensations going out 12 weeks and beyond. So the idea is that in having those folks exempted, there's more incentive to return to work when they're passed and cleared from public health. They also then don't have quite the same opportunities to take sick leave to tend for children that potentially could be out of school, or daycare options that close down, or taking care of different infected family members and things of that nature. So And in order to preserve our critical infrastructure and services, we've made the decision through policy to have those critical pieces exempted.
I really question that. I mean, of course, this is past tense now, but I don't see where the people that are critical in the operation of the county deserve less than the people that aren't critical, I guess is the way to put it. I think you'd want to take care of the people that are critical versus, not that you don't want to take care of everybody, but I don't know why these would be treated less than, we expect these people to come to work. I don't understand why, if they had to miss work, why we wouldn't pay them the same as we did the other people in the county. That's where I have a problem with this. I agree with this, but this doesn't match what the others may have got.
This does not make it equitable. It's not, again, an apples to apples. Another part of it that I'm hoping to bring forward to this committee next month is to allow for exemption at a department or administrative level to grant a 2-week payment for those that are quarantined with having a positive test result. And again, that's a way to try to open it up without, again, eliminating all the exemption and then having all these folks that might be eligible for two weeks extended.
That's all I have. Like I said, it doesn't make sense to me that everybody wasn't treated the same. And then these people should be treated above and beyond, in my opinion. But we haven't done that, so, I mean, this is a good effort to try to make it right. But I don't understand why, if someone was told they can't come to work because they're quarantined, they can't get paid because they're in an essential position like these, but yet the next person who isn't in that position has no problem getting paid. That's what confused me, I guess.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Supervisor
how-
Brewer.
Mark, how does it work at Schreiber?
Everybody's the same. It doesn't matter who it is.
You're considered essential?
We're all essential, I mean, but nobody is not, if you're off for 2 weeks, you're off for 2 weeks. I mean, you don't have any control over that. But it is limited to 2 weeks.
Clint, isn't this all started with the federal government?
It did. It's Can you hear me?
Nope.
I don't know what happened there. It's a trickle down from the CARES Act again the Families First Act that came. When the Families First Act came out, it said that the way it's written is that everybody is included in this and eligible, with the exception that local governments, people that they can be cut out from it as exempt. And at the time, the mindset that we went with is in trying to preserve critical functions of a nursing home, of a jail, patrol, and those types of things. It's intimidating with the mindset that you could have a large portion very quickly of your employee force have entitlement to 12 weeks with 2/3 pay, and then potentially benefit time past that. And so the mindset, again, of trying to preserve those functions and putting folks in a less favorable position to come back. They still have access to use benefit time, and we allow zero balance for COVID-related types of exposures. But that's the mindset in which we brought the policy forward and which was adopted.
And then, okay, thank you. So this committee and the county board previously passed this policy that that basically exempted our essential workers from this. I'm not quite sure what to call it because all these acronyms and things are a little confusing to me, but we previously adopted this, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and when did we, if anyone wants to look at the previous action that the finance committee and the county board took, where would they go to find that policy that we had previously adopted?
When did we take action on it? I think it would have been back in April or May. I don't know that off the top of my head, Mr. Chair. I'd have to,
Okay, so we
Investigate.
probably don't have it on our website, then it's probably buried on our iPads somewhere in one of those past meetings. When this started coming up, I think I got one phone call about this, and that was a little bit of the challenge I had, was just going back and remembering what did we do at that time when this all started happening. So that might be helpful for people to at least have that, so we know what we did do, because I think this was recommended to us and then we went ahead and did it.
the policy that we'd be referencing here is the policy we just reviewed with the changes in item number 7. So if you went to, on the hyperlink or in your folder to item number 7B, you'll see the Families First Act that we were talking about. And that's the document.
Okay, and we're in the section under that
If you scroll down on the first page to where it says employee eligibility, and we just had motion to change the Pine Valley Community Village. That's the list of folks that we currently have exempted.
okay, so currently exempt are the county administrator, the public health nurses, the Pine Valley Community Village staff, and that may be changed tonight then, likely, and then law enforcement officers, jail personnel, emergency medical services personnel, dispatchers, highway patrol, patrolmen, and equipment operators, and then MIS personnel. Okay, Supervisor Severson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Am I understanding that an essential employee who has been exposed or positive, tested, confirmed, if they have to be off from work, they have to use their sick leave for it, but a non-exempt employee would be reimbursed for their sick leave?
That is correct, depending on the situations and criteria that you kind of find in there. That's either a full pay or a 2/3 pay, depending on the 6 criteria.
I don't agree with that, but
Okay, any other committee members or supervisors? We have a few supervisors, additional ones who are here, so.
Well,
Just make
Mr.
sure to come
Chair.
up to a microphone, Supervisor Wagner and then Supervisor Brewer.
I'll tell you the truth, I didn't know that we did it this way. And I'm amazed that this hasn't come to the fore before now. And it just doesn't seem fair. And I'm glad we're doing something at this point, but man, you know, you're an essential worker, so now you're out of sick leave, too bad. Doesn't seem right, does it, Carrie? No.
Okay, Supervisor Wagner.
Would just echo what Carrie said as well. I mean, especially for those that would have limited hours anyway. So, I mean, that could cost someone hugely. So would say I don't agree either. So.
Okay, Supervisor Luck.
I just wanted to comment that it's not uncommon when I worked at the UW, essential services employees did get treated differently. They had less access to things because they're considered essential. So it's not an uncommon policy. And we first approved this on April 2nd was the first round. And then we revised it on May 5th or May, whatever.
Okay,
So
thanks for looking that up. Okay, anyone else? Yeah, Mr. Rizlo.
This gets a little bit confusing to discuss this matter. The Family First policy that was the previous agenda item, the carve out of certain Pine Valley employees was done just because of a court case. It doesn't mean in our eyes that they were any less essential than the others. And so to be totally transparent, and it might get lost in the discussion here, the hazard pay bonus agenda item, we are including all Pine Valley employees in that proposal.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from folks?
Going forward, Mr. Chairman, going forward, Administrator Langbrick, can we re-examine our policy, our overall policy?
Yes. you
Because
have
I
the
don't think
discretion.
we're through the pandemic yet. And I don't think we've turned the corner. And I think when we pass this original resolution, we are with the mindset that, hey, this thing's gonna be gone in 2 months anyway, maybe 3 at the most, and that just isn't happening. So I think we need to look at the equity of this way we handle it.
Okay, so we have before us a motion to recommend a resolution to issue this one-time hazardous pay to our, what I'll call our essential workers. So to entertain a motion there.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Supervisor Cooey, second by Supervisor Luck. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Agenda item number 9, AED purchases with capital borrowing funds. Is that you, Administrator Langret? Or do we have someone?
I can tee it up here. I think we might have Sheriff and Chief Porter on the line to help us as well. But looking for a motion to approve purchase of 18 AED units with money from the 75 capital improvements. The background. In our 2020 budget, we had money allotted for purchase of 18 AED units, one for the jail and one for every squad in the fleet. They have a bid was approved by LAGC for the total amount of $21,055 from SOS Technologies. LAGC chose this bid from 3 other bids. This will get us to 18 physio control life packs, CR2 AEDs, with an 8-year manufacturing warranty, 3 spare pad sets, and 2 spare batteries in case. Our total amount of money that we set aside for this project is $25,000. And then behind that, Mr. Chair, you'll see the bid to entertain through SOS.
Okay, and AED stands for?
Automatic electronic defibrillator, is that?
Okay.
External defibrillator.
What was that, Supervisor Severson? Automated.
External defibrillator.
Automated external defibrillator.
Yeah, automated is
Okay.
probably better than automatic.
Okay. Okay. All right. So anything to add from Sheriff Bindle or Chief Deputy Porter?
Nothing really to add. I realized as.
Okay. If not, questions or comments from committee members on this? All right. Then I'd entertain a motion. Okay. Motion by Supervisor Turk. Second by Supervisor Gentis. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 10, creation of a temporary administrative transition committee. So at the 5:30 meeting of the Rules and Resolutions Committee, that committee referred to the Finance and Personnel Committee this creation of a temporary administrative transition committee. And this comes out of the last Finance and Personnel Committee, which we had at the White House. I had made a comment during our budget deliberations about needing to address how the administrator's office was going to get staff and how we might need to make some sort of a change to the budget to make that happen. And I discussed after the meeting with Supervisor Luck on this issue, and it quickly became apparent that there were going to be too many behind the scenes conversations happening between supervisors unless we made this very out in the open. So, Supervisor Luck mentioned this idea. I think maybe Supervisor Brewer was involved in the discussion at some point too. Maybe we should create a temporary committee to study this transition and administration so that it would be very clear what was going on. If any other supervisors or department heads or the clerk or the administrator wanted to take part in conversations, that they could do so in an open meeting. And this here is a motion to recommend to the county board this evening to, if this committee decides to go the same way that the rules committee went, to form a temporary committee. And this would include final office space for the administrator, making recommendations regarding that. It would also include recommendations for revisions of remaining documents such as manuals, rules of the county board, the committee structure document to complete this transition to administration. The proposal is to have 3 county board supervisors be on this temporary committee. They would be appointed by the county board through a recommendation from the Committee on Committees this evening, I believe. Supervisor Brewer, that would be the plan for the Committee on Committees to meet briefly, to make a recommendation and bring it to the full county board. There would be an apportionment needed from the Contingency Fund in order to pay per diems to the 3 supervisors, plus potential mileage. And that apportionment, I don't believe is in the cover sheet, but it is in the draft resolution, which is, let's see, it's in the folder and it's on the website. And that's $500 from the Contingency Fund. And it looks like this would expire on February 1st of 2021. So it's expected that the work of this committee would be done over the next 2 to 3 months. So that's the item before us. And I'm curious to know if there are any questions or comments from committee members.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, Supervisor Brewer?
We didn't do a complete job when we established the administrator position. We just kind of waved our hand and said, hey, we got an administrator, and we left a lot of questions unanswered. We left a lot of people dangling. We left a lot of work to be done. And this is merely a continuation of what should have been done and wasn't done. So we'll have to get on with the task at hand.
Supervisor Gentis?
It's an excellent idea, and I hope everybody talks to the people involved and gets their opinion.
Anyone else? And then we've got other supervisors here. So I don't know if there are any other questions or comments from folks. Oh, was it thumbs up? It's a thumbs up. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Okay, so with that, we have a motion before us, and the motion is lost on me now. It's to create this temporary committee. So I'd entertain that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Brewer. A second by Supervisor Gentis. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So now we can go back to agenda item number 4, the resolution awarding the sale of $1,050,000 in taxable general obligation promissory notes. So Administrator Lineback.
Mr. Chair, looking for a recommend resolution awarding the sale of the $1,050,000 taxable general obligation promissory notes to the Richland County Board. Richland County will be selling, or has sold now, promissory notes on 27 March 2020 at 10 a.m. according to authorization granted through previous board resolution. Carol Worth, Richland County Municipal Advisor, will be presenting a finalized award resolution with a summary of sale report regarding Richland County's initiative to pursue a short-term loan to finance capital projects and capital improvements. This packet will include the notice of sale, preliminary official statement, debt service, and pricing schedule. The purpose of the short-term loaning used to purchase reoccurring capital improvements would give the county the option to increase debt levy to cover expenses, preserving operating levy to help maintain services. As previously discussed with the committee, the following proposed items are included in the proposed capital improvement capital project plan. Capital trunk road improvements of $650,000, 2 squad vehicles, $130,000, courthouse window replacement, $55,000, emergency tower and assessment, $45,000, courthouse heat exchanger replacement, $24,000, network infrastructure improvements, $20,000. Solidification and finalized plan of any additional items will be approved through policy presented to Finance and Personnel in November or December. Tied to several of these items are new equipment and computer maintenance and upgrades, and new automobile lines were removed from our 2020 budget and absorbed into loan funding for capital improvements. This leaves an additional gap going forward into 2021. The $1,050,000 places an additional $83 of additional taxes on $100,000 of property. Because this is a short-term loan, it does not require us to submit for a new bond rating and has limited impact on our current underwriters and our existing bonds. There are several different documents to view tonight. If you go to back to your committee folder, underneath a folder items from Carol, you'll have a finalized summary of the sales results, 2020 notes, and I believe I saw Carol in the back is here. If you want to come on up, Carol. Does anybody need, do you have paper copies with you as well, Carol? Is that? Okay. Thank you.
The only thing we should keep in mind is that we need time for the clerk to distribute resolutions to get signed. So we need to keep this to probably, what,
5 minutes?
4 minutes?
4 minutes?
Yeah.
We have a good 40 resolutions and ordinances.
Yeah. So we just need to be very brief on this. We have discussed this previously, and then there will be a chance to discuss this at the full county board meeting as well.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So if you could give us, Ms. Worth, a 2-minute summary.
Okay.
That would be excellent.
We've got it. All right, the document that's being distributed as well as on your laptops is the summary of the results. It starts with the background, which you have heard just now in Mr. Langrick's presentation. The important thing is in the first paragraph, it does again repeat the purpose language. And the important thing is that this is the language and the projects that the county is limited to spending the funds on. So you can spend that on projects that meet that description. Because the notes are taxable, the county does not have a limit on the amount of time to spend the borrowed funds. Okay, you obviously, we just reviewed the fact that the capital projects are being removed from the operating budget to create that room inside the levy limit. And these notes will be repaid on March 1st of 21. You have authority under the initial resolution to proceed with the borrowing. The September 1 report to finance had an estimated interest rate of 0.5%, and a true interest rate, which includes the underwriting expenses, makes it a true interest rate of 1.62. That was our projection on September 1. And that $83 tax impact. Rating was not applied for. We went forward. We prepared the official statement. That's the booklet that's being distributed. That goes out to the marketplace. In there is also a notice of sale. And that's how it instructs the underwriters how to submit a bid. We received 2 bids this morning. This is a very heavy week for sales in the marketplace. There's over 50 sales taking place. This week and last week were billions and billions of dollars in the marketplace. Obviously, a lot of sales want to get in before the election. So we had a lot of sales to compete with. We had a couple of underwriters that also expressed an interest in bidding, but when it came up to the time of bidding, they did not submit a bid because they obviously either want something else and they have a limit in terms of how much capital they can commit. But we did receive a very favorable bid from BOK Financial Securities. They are one of the top underwriters in the state. And their true interest rate, which does include their underwriting costs, is a 1.06%. So we were projecting a 162, we came in at a 106. Okay, Oppenheimer out of Rhode Island was our second bidder. The next page has the sources and uses of funds, and primarily what it says is that the bid came in with a little bit of premium, and that premium is generated as a way of paying the underwriter his compensation. The county will pay expenses of municipal advisor and bond counsel, and the rest is going into the project account. The repayment schedule is in the middle of the page. The pricing schedule is below that. County board action requires a majority vote of members present. This locks in the rate and levy and awards the notes to the BOK Financial Securities. November 4th is the closing. That's the day all funds will come to the county. $1,049,832 is what comes to the county. There's a little bit less than $1,050,000 because again, that's part of what the underwriter's keeping for his compensation. The county will pay expenses and have that $1,032,000 available for projects. That is.
Yeah, sorry to cut you short, but
Sure.
I just want to make
That's
sure
fine.
that we got time for questions or
Yep.
comments from committee members. If not, I'd entertain a motion to go forward with awarding the sale of $1,050,000 in notes. Okay, motion by Supervisor Cooey.
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Turk. And let's go ahead and let's do a roll call on this, please.
Brewer,
Yes, aye.
Cook, Gentis, Luck,
Aye.
Murphy Lopez,
Aye.
Seep, Cooley,
All right.
all in favor.
Okay, so that motion carries. So now, thank you, Ms. Worth. Thanks for going quickly. Agenda item number 11, adjournment. I'd entertain a motion.
We need a committee on committees meeting, and we can have it probably not now because Vic needs,
Yeah, we'll have a regularly scheduled finance committee meeting next Tuesday, and it will be virtual at 1 o'clock. That's correct. Okay, so a motion by Supervisor Cooey,
I think I'll second.
a second by Supervisor Luck. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. We're gonna give it a try.